started with a dare, a simple casual challenge. The kind of thing you say to your friends when you're looking for something to break the monotony. But what began as a joke turned into something far more sinister. I had always been a fan of abandoned places. There's something eerie yet fascinating about them. Places frozen in time, decaying quietly, holding on to memories of lives once lived. But this hospital, this was no ordinary site of neglect. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones, a weight pressing down on me that I couldn't shake off. But by the time I realized what was truly going on, it was already too late. It was a cold, foggy Saturday morning when I first came across the abandoned hospital. I had been scrolling through an online forum, searching for creepy places to explore, when I saw a post that caught my eye. Riverton Hospital, the place they don't talk about. The title alone made my heart race, and the comments below painted a picture of an eerie, desolate building that was once the heart of a thriving medical community. Now, it was a crumbling shell, forgotten by all except for those who dared to venture inside. I wasn't alone. I had brought along two friends, Sam, the thrill-seeker who never backed down from a challenge, and Jenna, who was always a bit more cautious but somehow ended up agreeing to go along anyway. Together, we made the plan to explore Riverton. Just for a few hours, we said. Just enough to film some footage, grab some photos, and maybe post a creepy video for the thrill of it. We parked our car outside the gates, the overgrown ivy crawling up the stone walls like nature was trying to reclaim the place. The building itself loomed before us, its windows shattered, doors hanging open as if inviting us in, and a thick, suffocating silence surrounding it. There was no denying the tension in the air, but we were young and eager, and the adrenaline coursing through our veins made us feel invincible. As soon as we crossed the threshold of the hospital's main entrance, I felt it. The unmistakable chill in the air, the kind that made your skin crawl, like something was watching, waiting. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't want to sound paranoid, but I couldn't shake the feeling. This place wasn't just abandoned. It was abandoned for a reason. The interior was exactly what I expected. Broken tiles, rusted hospital beds, old medical equipment covered in dust. The place was a graveyard of forgotten memories. We wandered through the hallways, exploring room after room, snapping photos of faded medical charts and discarded syringes, the remnants of a hospital that had once been a place of life, now left to rot. But the longer we stayed, the more I started to notice the little things. The faint sound of footsteps echoing in the distance, too soft to be sure, but there nonetheless. The way the air seemed to grow colder, even though there were no windows open, and we were miles away from any source of wind. And then, the whispers. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. The rustling of the old building, maybe the wind carrying sounds through the halls. But then Sam paused in the middle of a hallway, his face turning pale. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice tight with unease. I didn't answer. I had heard it too, the soft murmuring like voices just out of reach, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. It was coming from the walls. "Maybe it's just the pipes," Jenna suggested, but her voice wavered, and I could tell she wasn't convinced either. I didn't believe it. Whatever was in here, whatever had been left behind, was more than just a building falling apart. There was something watching us, something waiting. We continued down the hallway, but the air grew heavier, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer. Every corner we turned felt like it was hiding something that didn't want us there. We eventually made our way to the basement, the lowest level of the hospital. It was colder here, unnaturally so. My breath came out in visible puffs, the chill in the air biting into my skin. The stairs creaked beneath our feet, and the smell of mildew and decay grew stronger the deeper we went. That's when I saw it. A door at the far end of the corridor cracked open just slightly. My stomach churned as I realized it hadn't been like that when we first came in. "Let's go check it out," Sam said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. I tried to protest, but something about that door, the way it beckoned us, silenced my hesitation. I felt an uncontrollable urge to push forward. As we neared the door, I could hear something faintly, a rhythmic tapping, like fingernails scraping against the wooden frame. My heart began to race, and a sense of dread washed over me. "Do you hear that?" Jenna's voice was barely a whisper, but I could tell she was terrified too. Without waiting for an answer, Sam pushed the door open, and we all froze. The room beyond was dark, but in the dim light filtering through the cracked walls, I could see something that made my blood run cold. Rows of hospital beds, some with sheets still tucked in tightly, others torn and shredded. But it wasn't the beds that caught my attention. It was the figures, the patients. But there were no patients in the room. There were only their shadows, dark, distorted shapes that seemed to pulse in the dim light, as if they were alive, watching us. I reached for my phone to take a picture, but before I could, Sam spoke in a low voice, his words cutting through the thick tension. "Look closer." I turned, my eyes scanning the room once again. But this time, I noticed something that made my stomach churn. At the foot of one of the beds, there was a pair of shoes, worn, faded, and covered in dust. But they were moving. Not from wind or some outside force, but from something unseen. Something inside the room, brushing against the edges of the bed. Suddenly, the whispering intensified. It was no longer a soft murmur, but a distinct voice. A low, guttural murmur that seemed to come from everywhere. I couldn't understand it, but I could feel it, every word reverberating through my bones, shaking me to the core. "Get out! Get out now!" That's when I saw it. In the farthest corner of the room, something stirred. A shadow, tall and hunched, with glowing eyes that locked onto mine. My breath caught in my throat as I stumbled back, my body reacting before my mind could comprehend what I was seeing. The figure moved toward us, its presence oppressive and suffocating. I could feel its hunger, its desperation. Whatever it was, it didn't want us here. We didn't wait to find out what it wanted. Sam was already pulling me towards the door, but as we turned to leave, the whispering intensified, now accompanied by a scraping sound like nails against concrete, growing louder, closer. The figure's eyes never left me. We sprinted back up the stairs, hearing the footsteps behind us. The hospital wasn't empty anymore. The building was alive, alive with something that shouldn't have been. When we reached the main floor, we ran toward the exit, but the doors that had once been wide open were now shut tight. We yanked on the handles, but they wouldn't budge, and then the whispers stopped. An eerie, suffocating silence filled the space, broken only by the sound of my panicked breathing. "Is anyone there?" Jenna's voice trembled. The lights flickered overhead, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. I turned to Sam, but he was staring at something behind us, his face drained of color. I followed his gaze, and there, standing in the doorway, was the figure. Only this time, it was closer. Much closer. My heart pounded in my chest as I backed away, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, staring at us with those glowing eyes, its breath ragged, almost desperate. I could feel the walls closing in. The air grew thicker, suffocating. I reached for my phone, but my hands were shaking too badly to focus. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure lunged. Everything happened so fast, the world seemed to spin. I could hear Jenna scream, the sound of her voice echoing in my ears as I stumbled back into the darkness. I don't remember much after that, just flashes. The door suddenly opening, the sharp taste of cold air, and the terrifying realization that whatever we had encountered in that hospital was still there, waiting. I don't know what happened to Sam and Jenna. We managed to escape, but I haven't spoken to them since. It's been weeks, and I've tried to block it out. But every time I close my eyes, I see those eyes. The eyes of the figure that waited for us, that followed us. Sometimes I hear whispers. They come at night when I'm alone, soft and almost comforting. But I know better than to listen. Riverton Hospital is still out there, decaying and forgotten, waiting for the next group of explorers who think they can uncover its secrets. And who knows, maybe next time, you'll be the one to answer the call. If you found this story chilling, be sure to check out my other videos, where I delve deeper into more abandoned places and creepy encounters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales that will keep you up at night.